Hi, this video is a continuation in my series of file handling in Java. This video will be about how we can use something called object serialization, which uses the java.io package for directly serializing objects. So in my previous videos, we've worked with serializing saving text files. So the files will be very easy to read. It looks something like this. But there's a very easy way to save something in Java. We can save files as something called a serialized file. So a serialized file is really something that can take any structure, any object structure in Java and serialize it. So I think for the sake of understanding it, we would need to have some object first to let me show how we can easily do that. I'm thinking that in the previous examples, I only used these simple strings, and it wouldn't make any sense to just do this for strings. So I'll start by making something like a normal business object, or it's just a simple data object that we can use. So let's just make something like a new class. And I think I'll call this class something like person. And then we can say this person, we want this person to have some attributes, some private instance variables like, let's give the person an ID and a name. This is pretty simple, like this. And also what we would like to do is we would like to get some getters and setters for this. So let's try to do that. So we can use the alt insert for generating code. Alt insert, let me try to press that. So what we can see here, I can do a lot of stuff. I can take the one called getters and setters and just click OK. And we get that for the ID. We use alt insert again. Getters and setters also for the name. So you could argue that maybe we don't want to set the ID or something. This won't be the purpose of this video. We also want to do constructor. And we'll use both fields. I'll just select both of them and click OK. And that means I want an ID and a name when I create the person. We can also, if we want to, we can also create an empty constructor like select none. So you can choose if you want empty and then using getters and setters or not. So this is just a simple object to have something to work with. So I would like to create some methods that would actually add something to the file. So I don't want to use the same file. I'll call this one ser for serialized file. And then I want to be able to maybe start, maybe we don't want to print file contents or something like that, but let's look into that later. So I might just delete everything here because it's not the same thing that we want, but let's try to look at it. So first off, I'll outcomment this part here that I used in my earlier videos. And the first thing that I would want to do is, let's say that I have a person, p equals new person, and I want to give this person an ID, for example, number 1, and call this guy something like this. Okay, I'll create another person equals new person, give the ID number 2, and call the other person Peter. P3, new person 3, call the next person something like Jane, something like that. So now that I have these 3 persons, what I'd like to do is I'll put them into a list. So I'll say list of person. Persons equals new array list. Wow, sorry, run anything. Array list, and that's it, a new list. I'll say persons dot add p, persons dot add p1, p2, sorry, persons dot add p3. And then let's just try to print the list of persons. So I'm just going to say sout and then persons, and let's see what that does. So we can actually see that down here, the list, it actually prints fine, but there's something weird going on with these names here. It says DK, this is just the name of the class, and then an @ sign, and then some weird memory reference value or something like that. So we actually want to see data about the person. So I go into my person and I need to have a toString method in here. So I can just override that. Also, again, I use Alt Insert for using the override methods. It's already there toString, so I just choose that, click OK, and then now it prints much nicer. So we can see the persons, the 3 persons in the list here. So the next thing that we could do is we want to add this to a file like before. So I want to do something like save persons, and then I want to add the persons to that. So of course this method is not there yet, so let's try to use the generator to create it, save persons with a list of persons in it. So normally what I would need to do here is quite complex. So if I wanted to use I can't just add it like I do here, because we actually need to do something with some byte stuff. So how do I really convert a person into text that I could save into a file? You see, this is just, so it needs something like, for example, let's say I would write something like, it could be Jeppe and then comma, and then, or maybe the ID first, like 1, and then Jeppe, and then 2, and then Peter, and then 3, Jane. But this can lead to problems. For example, if in this case, it might not be a problem, but if there's a comma somewhere in the data, let's say there's an address or a field or something that we would put something like Jam Road 7, like 3rd floor. And then lastly, I would have some email j@j.com or something like that. So we see here that now we have 1, and when we have comma, so this is like the ID and the name and then the address. But the problem is that because there's a comma here, it'd be kind of confusing what is actually a new attribute of this object here, and what is actually just like part of it. And then you can do something like this. You can have quotation marks, but it gets really hard because then you have to kind of read. If it starts and ends with a quotation mark, you should ignore this. If not, you should not ignore. So it's not that easy to actually do something like this. This is like the normal, as we see in Excel, like comma separated files. Sometimes they use semicolon because that isn't used as much as comma, but it's problematic if the data contains the same character. You could also use some weird kind of character, something like this, but still you get into the same problem. So it's really quite complicated to do something like this, as we'll also see later in another video. But so an easy way to kind of skip all of this stuff is actually to use serialization. So serialization is something built into Java, which all the simple data types and all the built-in objects can actually do automatically. So what we want so what we need to do, we need to have something that can convert from being in memory and putting it into a file. So the file that we're going to create, the one called myfile.ser, is not going to be a text file. It's going to be a binary file that Java chooses for itself. So yeah, so what you need to do is to save something, we're going to use something called object output stream. And that is going to say object output stream OOS equals new object output stream. So the object output stream can take any stream in Java and create like an object stream that can be saved into a file. And it's built into the object output stream that we can actually write write object, it's called. So we can write any object into a file, almost any, you'll see later. So what I would like to do is I would like to say, let's save the persons like this into a file. So now we get into some problems. So first off, we need to get the stream. We need to have some kind of stream. And we can define a file to be an output stream, meaning it should stream all the data into that file. So we can say new file output stream. And what we need to put here is we need to put the file name here. And when using this one, the file name is just like a normal string. So we would use a file string path like we did in the file IO thing. Yes? It has some error here, yeah, with the catch block. So let's add a catch block, try catch block, and we need to move this into the try catch block, otherwise the object output stream isn't available. Oh, it is, because it's up there. Okay, let's just do it like this. Okay, so that's pretty easy. So this is actually the only thing you need to do to save all of the persons into an object stream. So let's try that, save persons, and then try to open up the file for a second. So let's try to play. And we get a problem. So it says not serializable exception. So this is because everything that we want to serialize, or in other words, everything we want to save with the object output stream, needs to be marked as serializable. This is kind of like a security feature. So in order to say that something can actually be, it's okay to save something, we need to mark it as savable. And there's an interface in Java called serializable, which means that it's okay to save this. So the list is serializable, I know that, but the person isn't serializable. So if we say implements serializable, it will be serializable. So let's go back here. One cool thing, let's look into the interface. It's pretty cool. Let me see if I can zoom. So you see the interface, it's just an interface. There's no methods in here. So this seems pretty weird to have an interface without any methods in it. But this is actually like a common way of doing something like this. This is what we would call like a marker interface. So it's kind of like a design pattern in programming that we just say, okay, we just have this interface and we only use it by name. And this is for making sure that everything that we want to have saved is explicitly stated as serializable. And you can read more about this if you read the entire thing here, because there's something with untrusted data and stuff like that. You can look into that. But for now, you should just know that if we want to serialize something, we have to implement this interface. and it's really old. You see the old version here, so this is still like that. Okay, so let's try to do that. So we'll try to run it again now that person is serializable, and we don't need to implement anything. We just need to say yes, this is serializable, and then it will do that. Let's see. Okay, and it also works because what we can see is if we go back here, we see it prints the persons and saves them into the file. Um, yeah, so we don't need to do anything. The only thing is, of course, everything in here needs to be serializable. So now I know the list is serializable, and that list holds persons. So when it tries to save the persons, it will also look at the persons like ID and name, and these should also be serializable. All primitive types and all the Java built-in types are serializable, so this will actually work. If you have your own type, could be a person who had something like a pet or something special, you also need that to be serializable to make it part of the serialized file. But now I think it would be very interesting if we could kind of look at the file that we created. So I'll just try to see if I can open that. So let's see. Where did we save that? User idea projects. And I saved it under java.io test. And source maybe here. Where's the path? Oh, file or project. Let's see, what is the path first? This is the file path. So I'll just try to see if I can open it directly. Oh, I put it on the desktop. This is why. Open the project. Did I open a project? Just a second. Let me just find the file. See. I'll just time travel for a second. Okay, so I found the file and everything. So we can't just directly open it in IntelliJ because it's not a text file. But I'll try, if I take it here from the desktop and I try to move it here, it will say, how do you want to open it, of course, because it doesn't know how to read that. So I can use a lot of weird stuff. I actually want to open it up like a text file. So I'll try to do that. So that is actually what I wanted. So what we can see here is that it looks pretty weird in here. So we see there's some null weird characters that it cannot show. It says something with array list. We can see some size. We can see a person. Okay. We can see like strings and names, and actually we can see Jeppe and we can see Peter and we can see Jane. So something is going on here. Something is actually working. So we did save something into the file. So that's pretty interesting. So the important thing now is, now I actually saved the persons into the files. How about reading them back in? So let's try to, now we want to print out the persons, but no longer we want to save them, and we don't want to make this list here, but we want to read the list into memory. So let's try to do that. Maybe just do like this. And then I want to say print out the persons, and I want to read it. So persons from file. So let's define persons from file. So that is going to be a list of persons from file, and we want to read that. So get persons, maybe not get, like load persons, like that. And again, let's create that method. So how do I load persons from the object stream? Or now I almost answered that myself. So how do we load persons that have written through an object output stream? Of course, we just want to use the object input stream. So we can do like this. We're going to say try, and then we're going to put the object input stream, object input stream. We're going to say object input stream equals new object input stream, and then we need to say new file input stream, you guessed it, and then we need to set the same file path as before. And we put this one, and of course we need to catch the exception, so I'll just copy that from here. So that's it. And also we want to say, then we say return object input stream, read object. And now we get an error because object input stream is pretty old, so it doesn't work this way with generics. So that means in practice it will actually, this one will return, if we look here, I don't know, let's try again. We can see it actually returns like an object. So what we need to do is we need to typecast that into a list of persons, like that. So let's see. Yeah, it can also throw another exception. So it will also be able to throw a class not found exception. That is also something that that we can actually say. So we'll catch both of them in here and print out an error if. So then the last thing is if there's an error, it doesn't return anything. So we'll say if it catches the error or anything, we just say return null, like that. So if it can't find it, it will return null. Okay, so let's try that. So now we are loading the persons from the file into this list, and we're printing that to the screen. Let's see if it works. And it does. So we see we have the exact same list that we saved. So we can actually read this binary file format, and we can save that binary file format. And you see, this is a very, very easy way to work with big object structures. And you can probably imagine you can save like a giant, if you put everything in your program, every single thing, every single object that you have that has some state into it, meaning it saves some data into it, then you'll be able to save everything with just saving the top one, and then it will take everything with it. And you can, this way, if you were making a game, you could create something like a save game very easily. So why are we not just using this in any case needed? So there is mostly drawbacks to this method, unfortunately. While it's pretty nice for just saving state quickly, it also has some big drawbacks. One of the biggest drawbacks, I think, is that this file here is very, very dependent on the person. So we know, for example, and also other classes. So if there's a change, for example, in the Java list class, then it won't be able to load that. It won't be able to typecast that object into that list. In other words, if we do some small change, for example, in a person class, let's say we do some refactoring. So let's say this ID thing, let's say that I want to refactor that. So I'm going to rename that, and I'm going to, instead of ID, I'm going to call it CPR number, like this, CPR number. Okay, So yeah, please refactor everything. Yeah. So it refactored everything like method names, all of this stuff. So what happens now? Now I'm going to load it in again. And I get an error. Local class incompatible. Serial version UID. So it uses this ID to check up against this ID and see, sorry, this class has been changed, so can't load that. This is a big problem with using this approach. So you could imagine, I said before, if you were doing a game and you created a save game, that would effectively mean that the smallest change into your game code would mean that save games would break. And that would be quite disastrous. So it's a method that we would like to use as little as possible. And it's not good for much, but it's pretty cool that you can just save the state like that and read it like that. So maybe in some cases with testing purposes or something like that, it's good. Also, I think another drawback is that this is almost impossible to read. So there's no. So let's say that we use that for a program that never changed in 12 years or 20 years, and then at some point someone needs to take over that program. Maybe Java is no longer the technology used, so people are using something else. And now the new programmer needs to be able to read the files that you've written, and they go in and they look at this mess here, and I say good luck figuring out the data structure of this. If they are lucky, they can go into the documentation of Java to try to figure out how these files are written, but it's not a very easy task to do that. So in general, I would discourage any use of the object stream, but I still think it's pretty cool that you can do it. And maybe if you're doing in a development process, it could be cool just to save the state of the program so that you could easily just load it up and save it. Other than that, I don't think there are many good use cases. So, but it is possible. Now I went back to the old version. Let's see what happens then. So now it works again. So any change to the class, even like the ID is not important, but if I change the ID, it actually changes in here. So we can also say the data becomes dependent on the names of the properties of that person, or the instance variables are coupled to the data in some weird way. And I think that's a very bad thing. And this is why you should use this as little as possible. I can't come up with a good use case for this other than for testing purposes, but if you might, maybe you can write that in a comment or talk to me about it. I just can't come up with anything. So that's it for these Java serialization, and yeah, I'm discouraging using it. So maybe it's not that interesting, but it does show that it's very easy to use. So for the next video, I'm going to look into something a bit more complex. So it's going to be probably a pretty long video about writing random access binary files. So in that video, I'll go into detail on how can we do binary reading and writing. How can we go into the middle of a file and overwrite something? How can we design our own binary files so that they are efficient in sense of space and time, something like that. So I'll look into that, and maybe it will be more than one video. I don't know yet, but this will be the topic of the next video. Bye.